All right, I'm working on a late 30s, 40s era phonograph today. I don't do a lot of work with these, but it came as part of a bundle deal, so I sort of inherited it. What we have here is marketed by Geib, I think that says. Geib, not really sure, out of Chicago. Now, the only part of this phonograph that particular company made was that little plaque there, and I'm sure they even contracted that. This is just a general type of phonograph that would have been, used at that time. They weren't expensive. They were no longer from the big manufacturers like Victor or anything like that. They would have been sold at department stores and catalogs, and would have been your basic phonograph with some very basic parts. Now, the motor is made by, who was that again? I forget. The General Industries Corporation. Yeah, General Industries made that. They made motors for pretty much all of the American-made type of portables of this era. A good motor. They're well made. There's nothing really wrong with them. This one uses 2 little springs, while others might have 1 larger spring or just 1 spring. Depends on what the end user wanted. And these were all made to order, these types of phonographs. You told them if you wanted a longer play one or just a cheap E. They all had this type of tone arm on them. These tone arms are pot metal and can often be found broken. When that happens, because they used them for so many years, you can usually find one on eBay or something like that. This one is riveted down, which makes life more difficult and tells me that this was not exactly a very high-end phonograph. I've seen others that were screwed down and easy to deal with. Your basic horn is just cardboard. There you go. That's it. I'm going to guess this one is actually probably 40s, because a lot of what I'm seeing here would have been common at that time. Little needle tin, that's what you got. The brake, pretty much just generic parts. They were used on all of these machines. What was the other one I did? The Waters-Conley, I think it was. That was another one. They made them for Sears. But at least the motor is good, and there's no problems with this machine. Now, what was really interesting, though, and that struck me, was that somebody had probably broken the original pot metal reproducer that was on there, and they replaced it with a Victrola No2, which is nice because these are about a $60 to $65 item on eBay, and I'm usually chasing them down. So now I have a spare, but look at this. Look what they did. They wrapped the tone arm with black tape of some kind, or maybe just rubber, to try to get it to fit on there tightly, because this was made for a Victrola mount, not one you would find on this type of machine. And they blocked the sound passage. Now, I'm sure a little bit of sound got through there, that tiny little sliver you see, but most of it is blocked. What they were thinking, I don't know, and I'm sure when this played back and it sounded very tiny, like 2 kids talking on a couple of tomato soup cans and a string, they probably said, the reproducer's junk, machine's junk, just unload it that way. I'm sure this was probably done many years ago. But look at that. You never know what you're going to find in these things. These kinds, it's not the first time I found this. I have found obstructions before, sometimes insect related, other times it was a sock in one case and on a machine. I thought I would show that. It's just interesting what you find. You never know what might actually be caused. I mean, this reproducer is shot. It needs to be totally rebuilt. That gasket was probably stone hard 50 years ago. You can see those gaskets and they look terrible. And that isolator is going to be also, it's like stone. Literally, you chip it out of there. You have to chip it out to get it out of there. But they can be rebuilt easy enough, and all of the parts are available, and it's a good idea to do it, because a reproducer like this will tear your records up eventually. There's no freedom of movement for that needle. That needle needs to be able to vibrate back and forth on those pivots you see there, or would if the thing would focus. See the pivots there? That's the needle. This is the needle bar right here. That's got to be able to move in and out very gently. You won't see it with the naked eye, but it does it. And if it can't do that when it's in the grooves of your record, it turns into a chisel and starts to cut its own groove. And you can see with this one, I don't know if that shows up on the camera, but that needle bar is actually a little bit off center. That's bent, besides another bad thing. You don't want that either, because that's going to also act as a chisel on your records, but that can be fixed. A tedious process of gently bending that needle bar and setting it back into its proper place. But that's something I do regularly, so I'm used to it. As you can see, I'm also working on the outing. That'll be the subject of another video. Once everything's dry on it, I just replaced the felt. As you can see, some remnants there. The original felt was kind of bad shape, so we had to do something about that. Oh, looks like it stopped. Motor's working perfectly. There's nothing wrong with it. Spins right up. No broken springs or damaged governors on this one. Which is fortunate because I didn't want to spend a lot of money on this. I'm going to turn around and sell it. And it's not going to be a big ticket item. So don't want to be spending a lot of money. Now, I do have a proper reproducer for this machine inside someplace in my collection of reproducers. And we'll slap one on there and get it back to its 40 sound. And you can see, I didn't show you the case. It's a generic type case. This was popular at that time. Kind of resembles a suitcase of the era. And actually, I guess if there was nothing inside of it, you could even use it for that. Nice big heavy clasps they put on these things. Look at that. Whoops. Let me get on there. Look at that. That's not coming open. It even has the original handle still on it. Not in the best of shape. Starting to crumble a little bit. Never a good idea to pick them up with these things, but it's still on there, which is pretty good. You can see how deep that case is, too. That's because they went with the double spring. All right, there you go. General Industries. Geib or Geig or whatever the heck, whoever made it. They're one of the hundreds of different outfits that put their name on a phonograph at one time or another. Means nothing. They all use the same parts.